The empty cradle, the house was silent. Silent in a way that hurt. Silent in a way that pressed down on every wall, every corner, every breath. The only sound was her voice. Soft. Low. Shaking. She sat beside the cradle, her body bent forward as if she could still see her child lying there. Her long hands rested on the wood. Her lips moved slowly, singing the same song she had sung every night. A lullaby. A song of comfort. A song that once made her baby close her eyes and smile. But now the cradle was empty. The blanket was folded neatly. The small pillow lay untouched. The wood had grown cold with time. Yet the mother still sang. She sang as if the cradle could hear. She sang as if her voice might reach through the air, through the distance, through the walls of war, and touch her child again. Her name was Sarah. Her people called her a strong woman, a survivor of war. But in this room she was not strong. In this room she was only a mother with nothing left to hold. Her song trembled. Sleep, my little star. Sleep in the dark. The night will end. The sun will come back. Her voice broke on the last word. A tear slid down her cheek, but she did not stop. She had promised herself never to stop. It had been months since the night of fire. Months since the soldiers came. Humans, they called them. Tall, strange, wearing hard armor and carrying weapons that glowed. They came like thunder. They shouted in a language she barely understood. They took food. They took land. They took lives. And in that chaos, they took her daughter. Sarah remembered the scream of her baby as the cradle was turned over. She remembered chasing, her feet slipping in ash, her arms reaching out. She remembered soldiers pulling her back as the child was carried away into the smoke. Others told her the baby was gone, dead, lost. Nothing survived that night, they said, but Sarah refused to believe. Every evening, when the sun dipped low and the shadows stretched long, she lit a single lamp in the room. She sat beside the cradle. And she sang. She sang to remind herself. She sang to remind the world. She sang so that if her daughter still breathed somewhere, the song would find her. Sometimes in the middle of her song, she would imagine a sound, a cry, a laugh, a small voice calling "Mother." She would close her eyes and pretend her child was back in the cradle, hands reaching, eyes shining. But when she opened her eyes, there was only the cold, the dark, the silence. Still, she kept singing. The neighbors whispered about her. They said grief had made her mad. They said it was foolish to hope when war had stolen so much. Some shook their heads when they passed her door. Some pitied her. Some feared her, saying her song was a ghost song calling spirits into the night. Sarah did not listen. Hope was the only thing she had. If she lost that, she would lose herself. The room around her told its own story. Dust lay thick on the shelves. The floor was rough with dirt tracked in by soldiers' boots long ago. A cracked window let in the cold night air. Yet the cradle was always clean, always ready. She washed the blanket every morning. She folded it carefully. She whispered to it, "One day you will cover her again." Outside, the night deepened. The wind rattled the broken glass. The stars were hidden behind clouds. The world was dark, but her voice filled it. Her song grew softer, almost a whisper. "Sleep, little star. Sleep and be strong. One day the war will end. One day I'll hold you." Her throat ached. Her hands trembled. Her tears dripped onto the cradle and then silence again. She stopped. Her ears caught something. A sound, distant, faint. She held her breath. Nothing. Only the wind. She let out the breath slowly and closed her eyes. She wanted to believe. She wanted to think that maybe, just maybe, her daughter had heard her tonight. Somewhere, somehow. Her fingers traced the wood of the cradle. Every scratch, every line, every mark was a memory. She had built it with her own hands. She had sanded it smooth. She had painted it with soft colors. Her daughter had slept here, safe, for only a few months before war had stolen everything. She leaned forward and kissed the edge of the wood. "You will not stay empty," she whispered. "I promise." The lamp flickered, casting shadows on the wall. Her eyes lifted to the door. For 1 second, she thought she saw movement there, a shadow crossing. She blinked, but the door was still shut tight. Her heart beat faster. She listened again. The night was too quiet. Too heavy. Sarah looked back at the cradle. Her voice returned, soft but steady. She sang again. Louder this time. As if daring the darkness to answer, the cradle stayed empty. But her song filled the night, and somewhere far away, footsteps began to move closer. Memories of war. The night outside was still, but Sarah's heart was not. As she sat beside the empty cradle, her song carried her backward, back into the storm she wished she could forget. Memories came like broken glass, sharp, painful, unwanted. She remembered fire, so much fire. The night when the humans came was brighter than day, but the light was cruel. The sky was red, painted by burning homes. Ash rained like snow. The air was thick with smoke, choking every breath. Sarah had held her baby close then, rocking her, whispering, "It will be fine, little star. We will survive." But even as she said the words, she did not believe them. Her hands shook. Her legs trembled. Her people were not ready for this war. They had never been ready. The humans came with machines, tall metal beasts that walked on two legs and carried fire in their arms. They came with voices that shouted in a tongue strange to her ears. Commands, orders, anger. Their faces were hidden behind glass masks, their eyes glowing with cold light. They looked more like monsters than men, but Sarah knew they were men. Flesh and blood, creatures that made choices. And that truth made their cruelty worse. She remembered the first screams, neighbors crying out as houses fell. The ground shook as weapons tore the earth open. The lullabies of her people were drowned in thunder and gunfire. Children ran, but they could not outrun machines. She had run too, clutching her baby against her chest. The little one cried, the sound piercing, a desperate plea. Sarah tried to cover her daughter's mouth, to hush her, to hide her, but fear has its own voice. It cannot be silenced. Then it happened. The cradle was overturned in the rush. Her daughter slipped from her arms. The memory replayed over and over in her mind, each time sharper, each time harder to bear. Sarah saw herself screaming, crawling on hands and knees through ash and dirt. She saw the child's small hand reaching up, fingers stretching for her. And then the soldier. A human soldier bent down faster than she could reach. He scooped up the baby, holding her tight against his chest. Sarah lunged forward, clawing at his armor, her voice breaking. "Please. She is mine, please." But the soldier's face was hidden, his eyes unreadable, his arms strong. He turned, disappearing into the smoke with the baby still crying. That cry, that sound, it haunted her nights. Sometimes when she sang, she swore she could still hear it, echoing faintly from the shadows. The other villagers pulled her back. "You cannot follow," they told her. "They will kill you." "Kill me?" she thought. They already did. When the fire died and the humans left, nothing was the same. Her city was broken, her people scattered, graves filled the land. The cradle in her home was empty, but she refused to burn it like others burned their belongings. She cleaned it. She set it upright again. And she sang. Everyone said the same words to her. She is gone. But Sarah could not believe that. Her daughter was not dead. She could not be. A mother knows when her child is gone, and her heart refused that truth. She replayed every detail of that soldier in her mind. The way he held the baby, the way he did not shoot her when he could have. His arms were strong, but they were careful. He had not hurt the child. He had not dropped her. Even in war, he had cradled her gently. Why? That question lived in Sarah's mind, scratching at her thoughts. Why had the soldier taken her daughter? Why had he spared her life? Why did he not finish her when he had the chance? Each time she sang, the question returned. Each time she touched the cradle, the memory rose again. And each time, hope grew where reason said it should not. The war had ended, at least in this part of the world. The humans had moved on, building their camps far away, but their shadow remained. Their machines still roamed. Their ships still flew across the sky at night, leaving trails of fire behind them. Her people hated them, feared them, wanted revenge. Sarah understood. She had lost more than anyone. Yet in her heart there was something else. A thread of doubt. A voice that whispered, not all of them are the same. She hated that thought. It felt like betrayal. But she could not forget the way the soldier had held her daughter. Now, as she sat in the dark room, her song faded, and silence returned. She could almost see the fire again, dancing on the walls. She could almost hear the thunder of boots outside. She could almost feel the soldier's shadow standing in her doorway. The cradle sat before her, empty, waiting. She pressed her hands to its side as if to steady herself. One day, she told herself, one day the war would end. One day she would see her daughter again, and when that day came, the world would change. Her lamp flickered again, casting long shadows. Sarah's eyes turned to the door. For the second time that night, she thought she heard something outside. A sound, a presence, a step. Her song was gone, but her heartbeat was loud, the past and the present mixed. The night of fire felt close again. Too close! She waited, frozen, staring at the door, and in that silence she whispered, "Not all of them. Not all." The sound outside the night was heavy, the kind of night where shadows seemed alive and silence felt too deep. Sarah sat by the cradle, her song fading into whispers. The lamp flickered weakly, its light struggling against the darkness. She rubbed her tired eyes, telling herself it was just another night of waiting, another night of hope and pain tangled together. Then she heard it, a sound, small but sharp against the silence. At first she thought it was only the wind. The broken window often let the air in, and sometimes it made the old door creak. She tried to ignore it. She hummed again, pressing her hand gently against the cradle's wood. But the sound came again. Not the wind, not the house. This was different. It was the sound of footsteps, slow, heavy, pressing into the dirt outside her home. One step, then another, then silence. Sarah froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Her eyes flicked to the door. The shadows on the walls stretched long, and for a moment she thought she saw one of them move. Her heart began to race. No one visited at this hour. Her people were too afraid to wander at night. The forest outside held dangers, and the memory of war was still fresh. Soldiers sometimes patrolled, hunting for food or supplies. Bandits crept along the edges of ruined towns. Whoever was outside, it could not be a friend. She leaned closer to the cradle, though it was empty. Instinct told her to shield it, as if her baby still lay inside. The footsteps returned. Closer now. Crunching the dirt, measured, heavy. Sarah's hand shook as she reached for the small knife hidden beneath the chair. It was not much. Its blade was short and dull. Against a soldier it was nothing, but it was all she had. The sound stopped right at her door. Her breath grew shallow. Her mind screamed, "Do not move. Do not make a sound." Then came the knock. A single, slow knock. It echoed through the room, louder than thunder to her ears. The cradle seemed to shake with it. Sarah's blood turned cold. She gripped the knife tighter, but her hands trembled so badly the blade clicked softly against the wood. She held her breath, praying the sound would go unnoticed. Another knock, harder this time. Her heart pounded in her chest. She thought of the war. She thought of soldiers storming her home. She thought of fire and smoke and her daughter being carried away. The silence stretched long and painful. She told herself, maybe they will leave. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I only imagined it. But then came the third knock. Slow, heavy, final. The sound of someone who was not passing by, someone who wanted to be let in. Her eyes darted around the room. There was no escape. Only the door. Only the shadows. Only the waiting. She forced herself to stand, her legs weak beneath her. Step by step she moved toward the door, knife clutched tight. She wanted to call out, to demand who was there, but her voice would not come. Her throat was dry, her lips frozen. Closer. The door stood before her now. The wood looked thinner than she remembered. It felt like paper, like one strong push from the other side would splinter it apart. For a moment she pressed her ear against it. Silence. No breath. No voice, no sound. Her fingers hovered over the handle. Every part of her screamed not to open it. But another part whispered, what if? What if it was not an enemy? What if it was news? What if it was something, someone else? Her hand touched the handle. Cold metal. She hesitated, squeezing her eyes shut. She thought of her daughter. She thought of the cradle waiting behind her. She thought of the song she had just sung, drifting into the night. What if someone had heard it? Her breath shook as she turned the handle slowly. The lock clicked. The door creaked open just a crack. The night air rushed in, cold and sharp. At first she saw nothing. Just darkness. Just the outline of trees. Just the broken earth under the moonlight. Then she saw it. A shape, tall, broad, standing right in front of her door. Her heart nearly stopped. The figure took a step forward, and the light of the lamp caught his face. A human, helmet off, eyes tired. armor scratched and dirty, and in his arms, something wrapped in cloth. Sarah's breath caught. Her body stiffened. Her mind refused to understand. The human said nothing. He just stood there, holding the bundle as if it were the most fragile thing in the world. His eyes, heavy with guilt, met hers for a moment and then lowered. Sierra's hand loosened on the knife. The blade slipped, clattering softly to the floor. The silence between them was thick, filled with more questions than answers. Her eyes fell to the bundle in his arms. Small, still, covered. Her heart whispered a single word. Daughter. The stranger appears. The doorway framed him like a shadow cut out of the night. The lamp inside cast a faint glow, but it was not enough to chase away the darkness that clung to his armor. Sierra stood frozen, the door half open, her breath short and shallow. A human. The word itself was enough to twist her stomach. For months it had meant fire, loss, screams. For months it had meant enemies, monsters, destroyers. And now one of them stood before her, silent and still. Her eyes darted to his hands. He carried something close to his chest, wrapped in dark cloth. His arms were steady, though his shoulders sagged with exhaustion. The bundle was small, far too small for anything but a weapon. Or a child. The thought struck her like lightning. Her heart raced and her knees almost gave way. No, it cannot be. It is impossible. Yet she could not look away. The human's face was bare. His helmet was gone, showing skin streaked with dirt and shadows of blood. His jaw was tight, his lips pressed thin. His eyes were not cold like the others she had seen. They were tired. Guilt lived in them. Pain, too. He did not speak. Sarah's knife lay on the ground behind her, but she did not bend to pick it up. Her body was stiff, her hands trembling by her sides. She wanted to shout, to demand why he was here, to order him to leave. But her voice was caught in her throat, trapped by fear and something else, something heavier. The human shifted slightly, lowering the bundle as if to show her it was no threat. His gaze flickered toward the cradle behind her, and for a second something unreadable passed through his eyes. The cradle. Empty. Waiting. Sarah swallowed hard. She wanted to slam the door shut, to lock it and hide, but her feet refused to move. Her heart whispered louder than her fear. Look, just look. Slowly she took a step forward. Her voice cracked as she forced the words out. What? Is that? The human did not answer. His lips parted, but no sound came. Instead, he lifted the bundle slightly, cradling it the way mothers cradle their children. Carefully. Protectively. Sarah's breath quickened. Her chest rose and fell as if she had run for miles. Her eyes fixed on the cloth, tracing its folds, the slight curve beneath it. Something shifted inside. Something alive. Her legs trembled as she took another step closer. Her hand lifted, hesitating in the air, shaking as though it belonged to someone else. She did not want to believe. She could not bear the pain of hope if it was false. The human bent forward slightly, holding the bundle toward her. His eyes lowered, ashamed, as if he could not meet her gaze. Sierra's fingers brushed the cloth. Warm. Too warm for something lifeless. Her hands pulled it back, slow, afraid of the truth it might reveal. The cloth fell away and a small face appeared. Her daughter. Alive. The air left her lungs in a rush. Her knees gave way and she dropped to the floor. Her hands covered her mouth to stop the cry rising in her throat, but the tears came fast, spilling down her cheeks. The little one stirred, blinking against the faint light. Then softly, weakly she smiled. Sarah could not move, could not breathe. For so many nights she had sung to emptiness, but now the song had found its way back. Her daughter reached up, tiny fingers curling toward her mother's face. Sierra's hand trembled as she touched the small fingers, feeling their warmth, their life. Her heart broke and healed all at once. The human knelt, lowering the child into Sarah's arms. His movements were careful, almost reverent, as if he carried not a baby but something sacred. The child shifted against her mother's chest, and for the first time in months, Sierra felt whole. She pressed her lips to the baby's forehead, sobbing softly into her skin. Her eyes lifted to the human. Questions burned inside her. Why, how, what had he done? But no words came. He met her gaze only for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice low and heavy. She would not stop crying, he said. His words were halting as if each one cost him something. Not until I Sang your song. Sarah's body stiffened. Her song. The lullaby she had sung night after night, pouring her soul into it. Somehow this human had heard it. Somehow her child had clung to it, refusing to let go. Her arms tightened around the baby, shielding her, but her mind spun. This was the enemy. This was the thief of her world. Yet without him, her daughter would not be here. The silence stretched again. Only the baby's soft breathing filled the air. Syra wanted to hate him. She wanted to scream and drive him away. But all she could do was hold her daughter and weep. The human lowered his eyes once more. He said nothing else. His hands, rough and scarred, rested on his knees as he waited. Waited for judgment, for rejection, for whatever she would decide. Sarah wiped her tears with shaking hands. Her voice was raw when she finally spoke. Why? The word hung in the air, fragile and sharp. The human closed his eyes, and for a long time he did not answer. The baby's face. For a long moment the world was only her child's face. Sarah could not breathe. Her heart thundered, but her body felt weak, as if the floor itself had vanished beneath her. She stared at the tiny features, eyes half open, soft skin, lips curled into the faintest smile. The face she thought she would never see again. It was real, alive, here. Her daughter shifted in her arms, letting out a soft whimper that melted into the air like the most precious sound in the universe. Sarah's tears blurred her vision, but she refused to look away. Her hand shook as she touched the baby's cheek, afraid she might vanish if she blinked. The lullaby she had sung for months, the one that echoed through empty nights, now hummed in her throat without her willing it. The child stirred, then quieted, as though she had been waiting for this song all along. Sarah pulled the baby close, pressing her against her chest. The warmth, the weight, the tiny heartbeat, it was all there. Her grief, carried for months like a heavy stone, cracked apart. Joy rushed in, sharp and overwhelming. She wept, her tears falling into her daughter's soft hair. And then through her sobs her eyes lifted to the human. He still knelt there, watching quietly. His shoulders slumped, his face pale under the flickering lamplight. He looked not like a victor, not like a soldier, but like a man crushed by the weight of his own choices. Sayra's voice trembled as she whispered, She is alive. How? The human's eyes dropped to the ground. His hands clenched loosely against his knees. He spoke slowly, as though dragging the words from somewhere deep and painful. She was left behind, he said. In the camp, they did not care. To them she was nothing. His throat tightened on the last word. He swallowed hard and forced himself to continue. But she cried. Every night. Every day. She would not stop. She cried until my ears rang. He looked at Sarah then, his eyes raw. The only thing that calmed her was a song. Your song, Sayra's breath caught. Her arms tightened around her child. The thought of her baby crying alone in some enemy camp broke her heart anew. But the thought of her song, crossing the walls of war to reach her daughter, gave her hope she had never imagined possible. How did you know the song? She asked. The soldier shook his head. I didn't. At first she cried so hard I thought she would break. I tried food. I tried holding her. Nothing worked. Then, one night I heard it, faint, carried by the wind. A voice, your voice. I do not know how, but I heard you. And when I hummed it, she stopped. Sarah felt the room sway. She looked at the cradle, then at her child. The impossible had happened. Her voice had crossed distance, carried hope into the heart of the enemy's camp, and saved her child. The soldier's voice lowered. The others wanted to throw her away, a mouth to feed, a burden, but I couldn't. He clenched his fists. I could not let her die. I told them she was mine. I hid her, fed her when I could, sang to her even when my throat burned. And when I realized the war had moved on, I came here. His words sank into her like stones dropped into water. For a long while, Sayra said nothing. Her baby nuzzled against her chest, drifting into soft, steady sleep. The sound of breathing filled the silence. Her mind was a storm. This man was the enemy. His kind had taken everything, her home, her peace, her child. And yet, without him, she would be holding nothing now. Her heart twisted. Hatred and gratitude pulled at her in equal measure. The soldier bowed his head, unable to look at her. His voice cracked when he spoke again. I am sorry for what we did, for what I was part of. There is no forgiveness for it. I know. He paused, then added, almost a whisper. But at least she is where she belongs now. Sierra stared at him. She saw no triumph in his face, no arrogance, only guilt, exhaustion, and a strange kind of peace, as though by returning her child he had finally laid down a burden too heavy to bear. Her voice was soft, but sharp. You carried her across battlefields, across fire and ruin. Why? The man's lips trembled. His answer was simple. Because she deserved to live. Because she smiled at me once, and in that moment I remembered. I am human. The word struck Sierra like a blade, but not with pain. With truth. She looked at her daughter again, sleeping now, safe at last. She remembered all the nights she had sung, praying someone would hear. Someone had. And that someone was the enemy she had sworn to hate forever. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was heavy, filled with unspoken things. The cradle was no longer empty either. For the first time since the war, it held life again. Sarah kissed her daughter's forehead, then whispered almost to herself, "You came back to me." Her eyes lifted once more to the human. Her heart still raged with anger, but her soul whispered a different truth. This man was the reason her song had found its way home. And for the first time, she did not know whether to fear him or thank him. Enemy or savior, the baby slept in her arms, warm and alive. The small breaths against Sierra's chest felt like a miracle. Yet even as joy filled her heart, fear and anger pressed close behind it. The human still knelt on the floor. He did not move. He did not reach for his weapon, though Sierra was sure he carried one. He only sat there, shoulders low, head bowed, as though waiting for judgment. She wanted to scream at him. She wanted to demand answers, to curse him for every death, every fire, every scar his kind had left behind. But her throat held no scream. Her voice was trapped between fury and confusion. Her child stirred softly, pressing her face into her mother's chest. The tiny weight silenced every thought for a moment. The baby did not know war. She did not know hatred. To her there was only the comfort of arms that loved her, the safety of a song she had carried in her memory. Sierra's hand smoothed her daughter's hair, but her eyes never left the man. He looked nothing like the monsters she had imagined in her nights of grief. His armor was broken, his skin lined with dirt, his eyes heavy with guilt. He looked less like a soldier and more like a ghost, someone who had already died inside, carrying only a shell forward. Still, he was human. The word burned in her chest. Human. The ones who burned her city. The ones who took everything. The ones she swore she would never forgive. Her grip tightened on the baby. She whispered more to herself than to him. You are the reason she was taken. You are the reason this cradle was empty. The soldier raised his eyes. His lips parted, but he said nothing. He only nodded slowly, as if accepting her words. Silence stretched, heavy and painful. Sierra's thoughts twisted in circles. She wanted him gone, out of her home, away from her child. And yet, her daughter was alive because of him. Without him, there would be no heartbeat against her chest, no soft breath, no smile. The weight of that truth pressed hard. Her anger tried to rise, but gratitude pushed against it. The two warred inside her, neither giving way. Enemy or savior, she did not know. The baby shifted again, a tiny sound escaping her lips. Sarah's lullaby rose unconsciously, humming low and steady. The child calmed at once, her breathing smoothing into peace. The soldier listened, his eyes closing briefly. When he opened them again, there were tears at the corners. She is safe now, he said, his voice rough. That is all that matters. Sarah's heart twisted. She hated that his words sounded true. She hated that she could not deny them. Her eyes flicked to the cradle. For so long it had been a hollow thing, a symbol of loss. Now it was full again. No longer just wood and cloth, but a place of life. She thought of all the nights she had sung to emptiness. All the nights she had prayed for a miracle. The miracle had come, but carried in the arms of her enemy. She lifted her gaze. Why did you not keep her? The question slipped out before she could stop it. The soldier's shoulders tensed. His answer was quiet. Because she was never mine. Because she called for you even when she had no words. She knew who her mother was. And his voice cracked. I had no right. Sarah felt her breath shake. Her child made a soft sound as if agreeing. The war had carved lines between them. Enemy and victim. Destroyer and survivor. But the baby in her arms blurred those lines. A child too young to hate. too innocent to understand walls built by blood. Sarah looked at the man again. His hands were scarred, rough from war, yet they had carried her daughter with care. He had fed her, protected her, sung to her. The truth pressed against her anger until she whispered it aloud. "You are human, but you saved her." The soldier lowered his head. "I saved her," he said, "because she saved me." Sarah frowned. "Saved you?" He nodded slowly. "In the camp I had nothing left. My hands had done too much. Too many wrongs. But when she smiled at me even once, I remembered I was still alive. I remembered I was still human." His words struck her deeply. She hated them, but she also understood. The child had been her light in the darkness, too. The room fell quiet again, filled only with the crackle of the lamp and the soft breath of the child. Sarah's heart raged with two truths. This man's people had taken her world, and this man had given her world back. Enemy, savior, both, neither. At last, she whispered, her voice sharp with pain, "I do not forgive you. I will never forgive you." The soldier bowed his head. "I would not ask you to." Her eyes burned as she clutched her daughter tighter, "But I cannot hate you either." The words shocked even her as they left her lips. The soldier closed his eyes, as if those words were heavier than any weapon. In the silence that followed, the lines between enemy and savior blurred until she could no longer see them clearly. Only a child's breathing filled the air, reminding them both of what mattered. The Song of Two Worlds. The room was quiet, but it was no longer empty. For months, silence had filled these walls, broken only by Sarah's lonely song. Now the soft breathing of her daughter echoed through the night, steady and alive. The cradle was no longer a hollow shell. Her arms were no longer empty. She sat on the floor, her daughter pressed against her chest, unwilling to let go. The baby stirred, her tiny hand gripping Sarah's finger, holding it with surprising strength. Sarah's heart swelled with joy so deep it hurt. Across from her, the human still knelt. His armor was dented, his hands scarred, but his eyes were softer now, almost fragile. He did not speak. He did not move. He only watched the child as though she was a light he had never seen before, a light he could not bring himself to touch. Sarah's anger still burned somewhere inside, but it was weaker now. In its place was something she could not name, something confusing, fragile and strange. Her lullaby rose again. She had sung it to emptiness before, but now the song felt alive. The baby shifted, her breath calming as the melody wrapped around her. The human closed his eyes and listened, his chest rising and falling with each note. The sound filled the small house, reaching into corners that had been lifeless for months. It pushed against the silence, against the shadows of war, until the night itself seemed to soften. For the first time, Sarah did not feel alone. When the song ended, the silence that followed was different. It was not heavy, not hollow. It was gentle, peaceful. Sarah looked at the man. Her voice was quiet but steady. "You carried her when I could not. You gave her back to me. For that, I thank you." The soldier lowered his head. His hands curled into fists. "I do not deserve thanks." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Maybe not, but it is the truth." He met her gaze then. His eyes were tired, filled with sorrow, but also with something else, relief. For the first time, she realized he was not only giving her child back, he was giving up his burden too. "You should leave," Sarah said at last. Her voice was firm. "If the others find you here, they will kill you." The man nodded. He did not argue. He did not beg. Slowly, he pushed himself to his feet. His movements were heavy, as though every step carried the weight of years. But before he turned to go, the baby stirred again. Her small hand lifted, reaching toward him. Sarah froze. The soldier did too. He looked down at the tiny fingers stretching toward him, his breath catching in his throat. For a moment he hesitated, then extended his hand just enough for her to touch. The baby's hand rested against his scarred skin, small, gentle, trusting. Sarah's heart tightened. The sight was strange, almost wrong, yet impossibly right. Her child did not know war. She did not see enemy or ally. She only saw a hand reaching back. The soldier's lips trembled. He whispered so quietly Sarah almost didn't hear. "Thank you," she frowned. "For what?" "For letting me carry hope even for a little while." Her chest ached. She wanted to say more, but no words came. She only watched as he stepped back, his hand slipping from the child's. He moved toward the door. His shadow stretched across the floor, long and dark, but it did not feel threatening anymore. It felt like a man walking away from the battlefield inside his own heart. At the threshold, he paused. He turned his head slightly, his voice low. "Keep singing. She will always remember." Then he stepped into the night, swallowed by darkness. Sarah sat still for a long time. The baby stirred once more, letting out a soft sigh before falling back into sleep. Sarah looked at her daughter, then at the cradle. The cradle was not empty anymore. Her song rose again, filling the room, gentle and strong. This time it was not a song of grief. It was not a cry into the dark. It was a song of life, of reunion, of hope. And though the human was gone, she sang knowing he could still hear it somewhere in his heart. For in that moment, the war did not matter. The walls between them did not matter. Only the child, only the song, only the truth that two enemies had shared one fragile piece of humanity. Sarah's voice trembled, but it did not break. "In the darkest war," she whispered. One song carried across the night. One child listened, one heart changed, and two worlds remembered they were human. The lamp flickered, the shadows shifted, and the house finally felt alive again.